Testing. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. So this clips on.
Okay.
When we shut it off the net.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's the same sitter too. So sorry. Is it really? Yeah. Has she actually came back? Yeah. She already came back? Yeah, she did. So we don't want to use that privilege too much.
One, two, one, two, one, two. I got it.
Yeah.
One, two. All right, next.
Good luck.
Mr. Clark, excuse me. Excuse me. Oh, sorry. Tickets, please. Tickets, please.
I don't know how in high school. I was like,
Way too much that crap.
How you doing, Kevin? Good. How are you?
okay.
Testing, testing, 1 2 3.
Now, Marie.
Testing, testing.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Michael Kallick. I happen to be the moderator of our town meeting here in Longmeadow, but we don't have a town meeting tonight, and our superintendent, Marie Doyle, has asked me to moderate this session tonight. So rather than a moderator, I classified a facilitator. In order to get this meeting underway, we're not, of course, following the rules of parliamentary procedure. It's something a little different, a little bit more relaxed than parliamentary procedure. I'm requesting, given the numbers of people that are here tonight and the desire of all people to have an opportunity to speak, that you speak no more than one time. Now, because of the numbers, that's what's guiding this process. Each person getting up to the microphone, please identify yourself by name, and I will write that name down. As soon as everybody has had the opportunity to speak, then you can speak again. But the request of this group would be to speak no more than once. But this is your town, ladies and gentlemen. As moderator, I've always believed that. This is your town. And so, given the constraints of what we have, the time that we have, I'd love to hear all of you speak. But I would ask for your cooperation when you address the microphone. Identify yourself so I can write the name down and ask your question. And there are people here that will be able to answer your question or to take note of your concerns. So at this point, I suppose we can begin the question. Mrs. Doyle? Sorry? Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Mrs. Doyle is going to make a PowerPoint presentation to you, and at the end of the PowerPoint presentation, we'll entertain questions. Mrs. Doyle, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Michael, for coming to moderate this evening for us. And I'd like to thank our audience for attending this forum. Redistricting is one of the most arduous processes that a community can encounter. Longmeadow values education, and families love their schools. All three of our elementary schools are stellar, and children receive great educations and experiences at Blueberry Center and Wolf Swamp. That being said, I'd like to briefly review the facts, the process, and the work done to date. I'd like to thank the Redistricting Committee members for their work in this area. I would like to introduce to you the members of the new and existing members of the committee so you know who will be representing you in the next few weeks. Alex Matreski, Armand Ray, Carrie Greenman, Deborah Diana, Jenna Papadopoulos, Michael Rashad, Kristen Sokolov, Carolyn Santiago, Sherry Ehrenberg, Elizabeth Terrian, Janet Robinson, Katie Gerard, Michelle Grodsky, Tom Manella, Rachel Axman, Stephanie Foster, Marie Doyle, Mark Oldenburg, Susan Bertrand, Donna Hutton, Marie Pratt, Neil Guile, Suzanne Higgins, Sue Collins, and Trace McColgan, and Julia Longo. The agenda for tonight is to review the history, the current situation, committee composition, charge, and timeline. In addition, I will review 3 current proposals under consideration. The only decision to date that the committee has made is to grandfather all rising 5th graders in their current schools and to review the 3 proposals that I'll present tonight. We'll also look at our next steps. Members of the Redistricting Committee will listen carefully to your input this evening. They will then meet on Thursday to review your feedback. The committee would like to have a recommendation to make to me during the first week of May. The school committee is following the process closely and has asked me to make a recommendation at the meeting on May 11th. At that time, the school committee will vote and adopt a plan. Tonight, we are here to listen to your input. After this presentation is completed, there will be public comments. Please adhere to the protocol given by Michael tonight. From the history, redistricting was last done 12 years ago. At that time, Neighborhood A, or Proposal A, was the district that was sent from Center to Blueberry. There were also neighborhoods that went from Center to Wolf Swamp. Currently, you can see from the chart that Blueberry has 7 more regular education sections than Center and Wolf Swamp. This taxes the administration and staff. In addition, Blueberry has no additional spaces should their numbers increase again and we need to put in another regular ed classroom. Currently, 4 special education teachers share 1 classroom, and staff is using storage closets for office space. Small group instruction is held in hallways as well as classrooms due to the overcrowding at Blueberry Elementary School. New programs have also led to the overcrowding situation. Over the past 3 years, new and expanded programs have required additional classrooms and office spaces. For example, each of the elementary schools have added literacy coaches, introduced technology specialists, expanded ELL, that's English Language Learner Services, and special education programs, added full-time adjustments counselors starting in the fall, and increased the number of sections of classrooms in order to keep size reasonably low. It is not just more students causing the overcrowding. It is expanded services that have led to the current problem of overcrowding. An enrollment committee was formed this fall by the school committee to study past and future enrollment trends. Numbers were run to try and balance the schools. Once this was done, a redistricting committee was formed with the representation listed here. The charge of the committee is to make a recommendation to the superintendent. I will then take this under advisement and make a recommendation to the school committee, who has the final say in the matter. The redistricting committee hopes to make a recommendation to me by May 8th, and I will make my recommendation on May 11th. When the redistricting committee met, we reviewed the priorities to focus upon. They are balance enrollment at all 3 schools, provide similar educational experiences for all elementary students, monitor the safety of students, determine suitable boundaries that maintain neighborhoods, reduce the need for busing, and provide a smooth, thoughtful transition plan. This chart shows you the history of the enrollment at the elementary school since the last redistricting was done. Blueberry Hill is the blue line, Center is the red, and Wolf Swamp is the green line. Here is the projected enrollment over the next 5 years. Enrollment drops at all schools, but inequity in school size remains. While enrollment studies show forecasted declines in enrollment, last year, Long Meadow saw an increase of 77 students in grades 2 through 8 in 2014-15 than the previous year. A question that many of you have asked, how many out-of-neighborhood students attend each elementary school? These students include METCO, school choice, staff's children, tuition students, and parent requests. Blueberry has 16 out-of-neighborhood students, Center has 21, and Wolf Swamp has 33. The process to date has included the following: the enrollment committee study. I then proposed that Proposal A be examined as a potential neighborhood to move to Blueberry, from Blueberry to Center. The redistricting committee then expanded potential options to 5 proposals and voted to bring 3 proposals forward to the community, Proposals A, C, and E. Let me review each of these proposals before gathering your input. This is Proposal A, and I'd like to apologize for the quality of the maps that were originally posted on our website. We've updated those to Google Maps so that you're able to click on and get specific streets. In addition, we've added lists of streets onto the website. So this is Proposal A neighborhood. What the redistricting committee did is they took each of the proposals and made lists of pros and cons to share with you as well as the committee. For Proposal A, pros, it borders one large neighborhood. It's similar distances from homes from Blueberry to Center. It has the highest concentration of students in the smallest geographic location. It equalizes enrollment and there's no busing. The cons, Longmeadow Street, Converse Street is a dangerous crossing. There are cut-through streets, and it was already districted before. Here is Proposal C. Again, you have a map in front of you, but on the website we give you the most explicit information with the list of streets. The pros and cons for Proposal C are, the pros, it keeps the neighborhoods intact, no busing is required, and it has not been impacted by redistricting before. The cons, the houses are closer to Blueberry than they are to Center. Also, Williams Laurel is a dangerous crossing. This is Proposal E. It's known as the buffer zone swing area. This is the more complex of the plans. As presented, currently enrolled families continue to stay at their current school through graduation, including siblings. Places emphasis on the children, as no child would be asked to leave their neighborhood school. Puts emphasis on families. Siblings attending school at the same time would never be assigned to different schools. One classroom may be freed up this coming school year, with an additional one potentially the following year, and two more potentially in the year after that. Creates a dedicated central buffer zone that can be used to balance school and class size indefinitely. There would be no need to endure another redistricting in the future, creating a long-term sustainable plan. Each new family not currently enrolled in any of the schools will be assigned to a school within 2 miles of their residence. Parents are allowed to list their preferred school within the 2-mile radius. There is no additional busing associated with this plan. In other words, Plan E does not change the town's preference toward walking routes. No single neighborhood would be targeted as a swing neighborhood. Approximately a quarter of the town would be in the buffer zone, which would minimize the perceived desirability of one neighborhood over another. This type of buffer zone plan has been recently implemented in Arlington, Brookline, Newton, and Wellesley. The pros and cons of Proposal E. Pros, it does not disrupt current education of students, achieves permanent balancing, spreads the pain, it's different, no need for future redistricting, eliminates stereotypes, keeps families together. The cons, it eliminates neighborhood school concept, it's a burden to administration to balance students, potential staffing implications, budgeting implications, contractual obligations, incoming families, no guarantees, walking, biking distance for students may vary, property values could be impacted, and it may take a few years to balance Blueberry Hill. At this point, I'd like to thank you again for coming to the forum. We understand this is a highly emotional topic as people love their neighborhood schools. Please remember to be respectful of others in your presentations tonight. Michael, our town moderator, will facilitate public comment session. In an effort to allow as many people as possible to be heard, we've established a protocol which is going to be more flexible because we do not have the numbers of people that we originally anticipated. So at this point, Michael, I pass it back to you.
Thank you, Mrs. Doyle. Ladies and gentlemen, there are 2 microphones on either row, so if you received a number, it's too complicated with the numbers. Go to the microphone, address the microphone. I'll give you 2 minutes to say your piece, 1 person at a time, and you may only speak once for 2 minutes. I will be notified when that 2 minutes is up. I like to give you as much flexibility as I can. Given the time constraints that we have, I must ask for your cooperation in limiting your comments for 2 minutes. If it's an answer to if you're asking a question, we'll take the time to answer your question, but I would ask that your comments and your time before the microphone be no more than 2 minutes. All right. First question.
What happened to the numbers?
Well, I think the numbers are unworkable for me. I don't prefer them.
I'm familiar with the numerical system.
Excuse me?
Never mind.
I didn't hear that.
I said we're all familiar with numerical systems and how numbers work. It seemed to be that you gave out numbers, we should use them.
Why wouldn't we use the numbers?
Well, I don't want to use them.
Okay. There we go.
Yes.
So we just get in line? Is that it? We just get in line?
Yes, just get in line, in back of the microphone, and we'll take your questions as they come. Yes, ma'am.
So my name is Sarah Lina. I'm from 123 Hopkins Place. And I have a lot of issues with Plan E. One of the statements that Marie Doyle just made, that this committee's original plan was to determine suitable boundaries that maintain neighborhoods. And Plan E is destroying those neighborhoods. Are we not, you're looking at me confused. Are we not allowed to speak now?
Yes, you
Okay.
can speak for
So-
2 minutes.
But,
Sorry.
so I, like most, love my neighborhood school. But the problem with Plan E is it doesn't just change me from one neighborhood school to another neighborhood school, and instead, it destroys my entire neighborhood. My one street is within 2 miles of all 3 elementary schools. So under Plan E, I could have, the kids on my street could go to 3 different elementary schools, different houses, but the street could end up with kids going to all 3 schools, which destroys the continuity of our neighborhood, of parents looking out for each other's kids because they get to know them. It's a safety issue, as the children currently all go the same way. They walk in packs, they ride their bikes in packs. Now you're saying certain neighborhoods, the kids are going to be going in 3 different directions. That's really going to shrink that mass safety of everyone traveling in the same route. The parents won't get to know the kids as well in their neighborhood. We do keep an eye on the other kids in the neighborhood, so I feel it's a huge safety concern. In addition, it selectively devalues the properties of this one section of town without putting that impact on the other people. It absolutely devalues properties. I've spoken to numerous people who said they never would have bought into a swing district because you won't find out where you're going to school until your child is 5, which is a long period of uncertainty. So for those reasons, I feel Plan E is completely unfair to those neighborhoods. It devalues our homes, it's unsafe, it breaks up our neighborhood, and it is against the original principles that this committee set forward. Not to mention, it very selectively only hits center school the most, with the number of creating the most uncertainty for that one school.
Your 2 minutes are up. Thank you so much. I'm going to alternate back and forth between, yes, sir.
My name is Alex Grant. I'm a member of the Select Board. I'm also a parent with 2 children who I think will be attending center school. We need to hit the reset button on this process. Redistricting should not happen this year for 2 reasons. First, this is way too quick and we don't have the information. Parents like me just found out a few days ago that they could be directly impacted by option E. That is not enough time to engage with this process. As I stand here, I am still not 100% clear on whether my children would be grandfathered or not. We also don't know what is the impact on class sizes at Blueberry Hill and Center. The budget calls for a reduction of 4.7 teachers. Where are those going to be? Those specific reductions are normally disclosed as part of the school budget presentations, but they were not this year. And what are the budget impacts of these different options? And here is why we really need to know this. If option C and option E, or any other option, is, say, $250,000 more expensive than option A, which is the superintendent's preferred option, there are no options, and there is no choice unless the school committee is prepared to go to town meeting to ask for an amendment to a budget that they have already passed. The school committee chair has already stated that the budget they have cuts to the bone. So there's no room for maneuver if the different options we have here have different impacts on the budget. Which brings me to my second point. The process that's been followed is backwards. The redistricting, if it happens, if it needs to happen, it needs to come first. The budget needs to be based on the redistricting decision, not the other way around.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Sean Anderson.
I didn't get the name?
Sean Anderson.
Thank you.
So first off, I'd like to commend the redistricting committee. You have a thankless job, and you're doing a great job. It's very difficult, very emotional, and hopefully everybody can really respect the process and respect each other in this room and within the communities. I am in one of the proposed zones, and my only caveat, my only concern is really the educational well-being of those students within any zone that the redistricting committee should decide to vote out of their school. And my one ask is that you consider grandfathering all existing students and their siblings so that they can maintain the learning and continue to love and be part of that community school that they've grown to love. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Chris Papadopoulos.
I'm sorry?
Chris Papadopoulos.
Thank you.
My family is in one of the proposed zones, and I support any redistricting proposal that's up there. I realize it needs to be done, but I need it to include grandfathering of all current students and their families. I encourage the redistricting committee and the superintendent and the full school committee to develop a long-term sustainable enrollment plan that allows for our community never to have to deal with this again.
Thank you, sir. Yes. Hello? Yes, sir.
Yes, my name is Alan Mather. I'm an impacted parent from Zone A. The main reason I wanted to come up and speak today is to let everyone know and the committee know that I support any plan that includes grandfathering for all children and their families into their current schools and a long-term solution to the problem. Like a number of other parents from Zone A in particular, we found our streets on the email that was sent out on February 25th. So we have been working night and day, like a second job, to research all the information, to look at every piece of data we could get our hands on, talk to public officials here locally in town to get the facts, public officials in Boston. We have researched redistricting efforts across the state, and I can tell you when you sort of compare what's happened here, we have been cheated of a well-thought-out process. The entire town has. I do sympathize with the difficulty of what is going on here. You'll find that in every town, a lot of the concerns are the same, that the dissension is very similar, the concerns are very similar, but in Proposal A in particular, this zone has been handed a raw deal for the second time in 10 years. This time, wanting to move 70 kids from Blueberry back to Center with no incentive and no assurances that they won't do it again. So I know a lot of people have just woken up to the redistricting news. They've now found that they're a part of the equation. I push aside all comments that are, without fact, even hurtful comments that have come through, but please come up, express your grievances. I think the committee needs to hear all of those.
2 minutes is up. Can you conclude?
I'll just finish by saying,
Sure.
But please have the courage to support grandfathering, because if you're in that same position, I think you would want the same for your children.
All right.
And let's not be here again in another 5 years.
Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Stella Coughlin, Coughlin, Hopkins Place. and I'd like to read my comment.
Yes, ma'am.
About 2 years ago, my neighbor's husband passed away unexpectedly. It was devastating to her and her 3 children as well, I'm sure you could imagine. It also had a strong effect on the street and the neighborhood in general. We all did what we could those first few months. We delivered meals, watered her hedges, but most notably, we helped her get her children to and from school. Now, my family moved here 5 years ago, and hers about 12. Given that scenario, if we lived on a swing street, there would have been a good probability that her children and my children would attend different elementary schools. I know there would have been no way I could have gotten my children and her children to different schools, 2 different car lines on time. I know that this small gesture meant a great deal to my neighbor, since she had to get to work each morning. I think that we helped her in some small way to get through those first few months. Actually, I know we helped her. Please do not take away the ability for a neighbor to help another neighbor. Someday it could be you that needs this assistance. Let's not take away the opportunity to give or receive help in this unpredictable world. I share this story with you because I am opposed to option E. Please consider a different option as you redistrict our town. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Aaliyah Mamdani Myers, and I live in neighborhood 13, which is part of the proposed buffer zone. I have a daughter in first grade at Center School and another starting kindergarten in the fall. I oppose Plan E for several reasons, some of which are specific to my neighborhood, but I am here tonight representing others who ask that Plan E to be removed from consideration. Since the introduction of Plan E, several petitions and letters, some of which you may hear tonight, have been initiated, each citing their particular reasons why it should be discarded. The plan itself raises many issues, and people have their own reasons for opposing it. But bottom line, there are many who do not support the plan. On Sunday, I wrote and circulated a simple 3-sentence letter of opposition asking the committee to discard Plan E, listing 3 issues that could be agreed upon. Safety concerns for children as bikers and walkers, the impact it would have on property values, and the overall effect it would have on the neighborhood communities within the buffer areas. Tonight, I'm able to present the committee with 51 signed copies of that letter for their review. The letters have been signed by residents within my own neighborhood of Glen Arden, other buffer areas, and as well as those living outside the proposed buffer area. Again, we ask you to please discard Plan E. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Maura Murphy. I have a child that's at the high school that would not be affected. However, I'm a realtor in town, and I believe that the swing plan, Plan E, would be a huge mistake to the character of our small town. One of the many attractive features of our town is the neighborhoods. Dividing up those residential zones to different schools will cause substantial disruption to the small town feel. Many children ride together, safety in numbers, especially crossing busy streets and longer distances. Although this would prevent further redistricting, it would have a negative effects on new families and neighborhoods down the road. It will not benefit the town other than save the hassle of redistricting. There will be many battles with new residents, many of whom will not opt to move to town with such uncertainty. Longmeadow attracts new buyers through the school system. Buyers want to know which school they will be in. Realtors will not be able to give them a definitive answer. As a realtor, I see firsthand requests from incoming buyers for specific schools. The largest of the swing will have a larger negative effect on the desirability to buy in Longmeadow. Buyers will not want the uncertainty of a swing neighborhood. Realtors do not steer buyers to homes, as indicated in earlier correspondence. Buyers request to view homes in certain school areas. They will certainly not want to deal with the swing plan and will opt to go to other towns if they can't find it in Longmeadow, decreasing the value of homes in the large swing area. This is not Boston. We are not a big town. We don't need to implement policy of larger towns. Small town, neighborhoods preserve the character and the charm of our small New England town, or pay a large penalty in decreased real estate values. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
My name's Jenny Anderson, and I'm part of the Proposal A. I'm affected. I just would like to support any plan that includes grandfathering of all children and their families to the schools they love. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Teresa Carrington, 27 Fernleaf Ave. No matter what plan or solution is voted on, I'd like the committee to consider our kids' well-being and happiness and allow current Blueberry students to be grandfathered in. My son Jack will be entering 4th grade in this fall. He has been at Blueberry since kindergarten and absolutely loves his school, all his teachers, and most importantly, his Blueberry friends. He is on a solid path of having a happy childhood, which has a lot to do with his sense of community that he feels in his neighborhood school and the Blueberry families in our circle. Moving him after the 4 happy years of foundation he has built for himself at Blueberry and forcing him to start all over again, like a new student moving into town, is cruel and unfair. He only has 2 years left before graduating from Blueberry onto middle school, and to think this is not negatively going to impact him is unrealistic. I asked the committee, is this the only solution to this problem? Jack's class may be one of the biggest since redistricting occurred over a decade ago for our neighborhood. Since then, Blueberry's enrollment numbers have pretty much leveled off and gone down, as you saw in that chart. It isn't increasing. I know there's different things that have happened since then. But I worry about the sense of urgency, and I wish there was a little more time for a thoughtful plan. New families moving into our community will love Center or Blueberry, both amazing schools. But I can tell you from my own experience, if you change your mind halfway through a child's elementary learning and force that child to move, all you will have is sadness and anger from the families you are representing here today. Please focus on the happiness of our children and grandfather current Blueberry kids so they can graduate with pride from their neighborhood schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Palma, 42 Elizabeth Circle. I'd like to read a letter that was signed by 107 residents to Superintendent Doyle and members of the Long Meadow School Redistricting Committee. As outlined in Superintendent Doyle's letter to the Long Meadow community, the key priorities of the redistricting process are to balance enrollment, maintain safety for students, and find the least disruptive solution for our community. Of the 3 current options, we ask that Proposal E be removed from consideration at this time. It is the least effective and most disruptive. First and foremost, Proposal E does nothing to solve the most pressing and imminent problem, the overcrowding of Blueberry Hill School. Proposal E will not reduce enrollment at BHS in the 2015-16 school year. In addition, Proposal E is the most disruptive option to one of the fundamental foundations of Long Meadow, which is our neighborhood school system. To have children from the same block going to different schools and to have property owners in a large portion of the town be in a swing state is overly disruptive. We've been advised by local realtors that the uncertainty created under this option will negatively impact home values for the affected homeowners. We respectfully ask that Long Meadow School administrators carry out the job entrusted to them. A redistricting decision should not be a popularity contest, nor should it be a public battle pitting neighbor against neighbor. This should be a decision based on non-biased, data-driven analysis by impartial parties. Earlier this year, Superintendent Doyle recommended implementing Proposal A as the least disruptive option to rebalance enrollment at the 3 schools. It cannot be ignored that Proposal A has also been identified as the safest plan for the affected children by the Chief of Police. Accordingly, the superintendent should stand by her original recommendation, and the school committee should support the people who have been hired to make these recommendations. You cannot please everyone in this process. What you can do is make the best non-biased decision for the children and the families that are involved. We must trust that as educational professionals and selected school committee representatives, you will make the right decision for the right reasons. Concerned parents and property owners.
Thank you very much. We want to remind ladies and gentlemen, to try as best you can to keep your remarks within the 2 minutes. I'll give you as much latitude as I can, but please keep your remarks within 2 minutes. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I'm Richard Tariff, Erskine Drive in town. No children in school. I am a former school committee member for 9 years back in the day, and I was chairman of the building committee for Center School. The real estate property the real estate value in the Center School District dramatically went up after Center School was remodeled. We are going to see, and I'm a realtor here in town, I've been a realtor for 22 years, you're going to see the real estate market in that swing district go dramatically down if that was put into effect. As a school board member, as a school committee member, I will say to you that it would be an unbelievable situation that all of you are going to put yourself in, because people are going to come to you and appeal why their children are being moved and into the swing district, and they'll have great reasons, of personal reasons, health reasons, whatever. As an educator for 42 years, I think it's a huge mistake. I can't comprehend that this plan is even on the table. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi there, Emily Chandler from Duxbury. Emily Chandler.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I'd like to talk about discarding Plan E. Someone who moved into the community this past September. I can't be more excited to put my kids through school here. I think all three schools are wonderful. However, this swing plan creates a problem for my family. We're the youngest kids on the street with no other children in the school system. My neighbors have children in the school system right now. We both have 3-year-olds. If the swing program goes into effect, my child could have to walk in a separate direction, possibly to Wolf Swamp, down a road, Shaker Road, with no sidewalk to get to school. That's unsafe. It seems ridiculous to me. We're talking about reducing busing. If a child at the end of my cul-de-sac is sent to Wolf Swamp, that's 2 miles. They would require a bus. So I think for safety, for allowing our kids to walk to school together, to keep everyone together so that we can carpool and do all the things that we're supposed to do here in Longmeadow, I'd really encourage the committee to discard Plan E. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes.
Hello,
Hello.
my name is Shay. I'm in 3rd grade. I'd like you to know that we should not move kids to different schools, because what if they get bullied to mean kids, or other kids that are there be rude to them? Or they can have close friends, or they're really into their class and teachers. And what if they don't know anyone or any teacher there? I'm one of the kids that may be moving. I love my school and I don't want to leave my school.
Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Laura Loma. I actually live in a neighborhood in town that is not impacted by the redistricting proposals. I moved to town about 2.5 years ago, with one of the key reasons being the great reputation of the school system. So you can certainly see I would be concerned with the way that this process is being managed, because in the future, it could have an impact on my children if, a similar plan has to go in effect 5-10 years from now. So I just wanted to say that, I support any of the redistricting proposals that includes grandfathering in of all the current students and families in the current schools that they're in. And I'd strongly encourage the committee to think about a sustainable enrollment plan, which is something definitely that I would like to see in the community that I live in, would like to raise my kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Kate Colleen. I live at 79 Birchwood Avenue, and I have a petition signed with over 150 concerned residents in favor of grandfathering all existing children that are enrolled currently in the elementary schools. And I support anything that grandfathers our children that are currently enrolled. And you start at a school, you end at a school. There are many other solutions than redistricting. I don't understand why we're going forward with the redistricting. How about renting a temporary module classroom for Blueberry? How about asking the parents that want to go to Center School to go move there? They can volunteer, and little by little chip away at the overcrowding issues. It took over 4 years for this to become a problem. Why did it take so long, and what is the rush? All right? New families moving into town can also have a choice to go to Blueberry or Wolf Swamp. This problem was not created overnight, therefore the solution should not be also.
Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
Hi. Sorry. Hi, my name is Darby Mather, and I reside at 101 Converse Street, Area A. I want to say that I'm disappointed in the lack of proper process in this redistricting effort and how it's prompting some poor behavior by our community, and I'm most concerned with the longevity in a solution. Pushing one plan, the same plan as around 10 years ago, doesn't sound well thought out. It sounds like a lazy shortcut. For my family, we clearly represent how grabbing pocket neighborhoods without grandfathering leaves no certainty in where you'll go to school or that you'll get to remain in a school when you're buying a home. We purchased our home over 3 years ago knowing our kids would go to Blueberry, and now we're being redistricted. The redistricting in its current form allows this to happen again. If you're concerned about how people think about home purchase, think about that. We should just be for full grandfathering of any plan. Regardless of what is selected, I also wanted to say that I don't like this talk about plans dividing a neighborhood or disrupting the idea of what a neighborhood is. We live on a street where kids go to different schools, Catholic schools, elementary schools, middle schools, and they're all playing on the street together when those moments present themselves. There's no less a neighborhood feel or neighborly conduct because of it. It's the activities that mostly tie kids together these days, and parents match up with kids based on these schedules, and these schedules change regularly. When they get home with time to play with neighborhood friends, nothing has changed. They are still there. I agree, kids are kids, and it's the parents that set the tone. I can only imagine an exclusive community to worry about this, not an inclusive one, which is the community I want for my kids. Ultimately, my concern is longevity. I don't think the quick fix is needed in a way to shift any kids. Grandfathering is always key, and this should not happen again when there are options to avoid it. Any plan without full grandfathering is flawed. I would 100% back any plan that grandfathered all the current students. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Lachlan Berry, and I live on 208 Ellington Road. When I was growing up, I went to Blueberry for 1st, 4th, and 5th grade, and when I went there, we all walked to school together, and my little sister walks to school there. I live in a district that would be affected by Plan E, and moving my little sister over to Center would probably not be a good idea, and also Plan E is just very disruptive, and I would rather not have that happen.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, I'm May O, and my family resides on 513 William Street. My husband and I oppose both Plans C and E. We are against Plan C mainly because it may pose a hardship to many of the children involved. It will require students living much closer to Blueberry Hill to travel much farther to attend Center School, possibly doubling the distance they used to travel. Some kids who used to walk or bike may in fact choose to be driven. We are against Plan E for a couple of reasons, the most important being that it does not solve the current overcrowding problem at Blueberry. Our own principal, Marie Pratt, mentioned in the minutes of the meeting last March 16 that she felt like she was not doing what is best due to the volume of students, teachers, and issues that she deals with. On a separate meeting on April 1st, when asked about the urgency of the situation, the following things were mentioned: stress on the staff, crowded conditions, a less than optimal learning environment for some of the students, and stress on the building itself. Like a lot of you, our family moved to the town for the quality of the schools. We value our children's education very much and are strongly against it being compromised by the lack of resources secondary to overcrowding. We firmly believe a more immediate and impactful solution must be taken. One classroom gained next school year is not sufficient. In the meeting on April 17, Marie Pratt said that with Plan E, she was concerned about the lack of immediate results, and that she might have to wait another 4 or 5 years to see any more relief. I think we can and that we should do better. I hope those who are tasked with making the final decision on this are able to get beyond all the noise and see the bigger picture, that they do what is right, not just what makes a handful of families happy for the short term. Support of our school staff and quality of education need to be the most important considerations in this decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Jen Brown, and I live at 44 Colton Place. And my family and I oppose they can't hear me. Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes.
My name is Jen Brown, and I live at 44 Colton Place. My family is part of the Neighborhood 7 that was just recently added to Proposal E. And I have in my hand what was posted online for the modified proposal. And some of the issues we have with this plan are just some of the discrepancies that this plan was posted online and some of the feedback that we got. The last sentence of the first paragraph reads, "As with all plans, Proposal E incorporates grandfathering, which allows all existing students, including siblings not yet enrolled in school, to remain in their existing schools." We emailed to confirm that question and if that is in fact the facts, and we were told that the committee has only approved grandfathering students currently in grade 4, who are going to be in grade 5 next year. So the pros online read that all current enrolled students continue their education in a school that they have started, and once family enters in the school, that family stays in that school for all its children. I have a 5th grader at Center School, and I have a 2-year-old son who we don't know who we'll be sending to school if this plan passes. The cons I wanted to add is that busing kids that otherwise wouldn't need busing, impact home values, uncertainty of school assignment. And one thing I want to add is that our house was moved in the 20s to build the Center School. So now my son may need to be bused to Wolf Swamp or to another school in order for him to, it'll affect us. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hello, Russell Duperret. I live on Ashford Road, and I prepared a statement tonight, but I've decided not to read it. I had I guess as a parent, and most of us are parents, I'd like to tell you a parent story that occurred today. My 8-year-old daughter came home and said to me, or called me at work, and said, "Daddy, I think I did something wrong." And I said, "Well, Isabella, what did you do wrong? What happened today?" And she doesn't get in trouble usually, so I was kind of surprised. And what she told me was, I signed a petition. And I said, "Well, what was the petition about?" And she said it was about redistricting. And I said, "Well, Isabella, did you sign it in a way that you believed you were doing the right thing?" And she said, "Yes." And I said, "Well, Isabella, I will never fault you for doing that. You do the right thing, and your father will never have a problem with that." And so she said, "Thank you very much, Daddy. You know, this is very," she was all emotional about it. And I said, when I got home today, I said to Isabella, "So what is the plan? What is the plan that you think as a child would make sense in this situation?" And her answer to me was, she detailed a plan. It's similar to some of the plans we're talking about tonight. But her last comment was telling into something that I think all of us need to think about, which is, "Daddy, you can't tell anybody my plan because they'll criticize me, and I haven't thought about my plan enough." That's what we're doing here tonight. Every single one of us, unfortunately, because we've been placed in this situation. So when I look at this situation, I'm a school attorney. I represent a lot of schools. If I had been asked by any of my clients for advice about how to do this, this would have been the last way I would have recommended to do it. And there's really 2 ways you can do this. I mean, with a decision of this magnitude that affects all of us this way, there's one way to do it is you have the school committee look at the decision, make it public, have a school committee in public on TV and say, "Listen, we're thinking of redistricting."
Your time is up. Continue.
Could I please finish?
Yeah.
Just
keep going.
So, I apologize for going over.
It's okay.
So there's really two ways. One is the school committee decides we want to look at redistricting, and then they tell the community that, and we have a meeting with the school committee and we talk about it. Then they set up a committee to actually look at this without any prejudgment, just what are the plans that are possible. So we avoid what my daughter Isabella said today, which is what we're doing today. After that, you have the redistricting committee look at options, bring it back to the committee, and then we hold public hearings, and we talk at those public hearings, as we are now, about fully formed plans. We're not A, C, and E right now, in my opinion. I couldn't vote for any one of them. They don't make any sense, ultimately. The second way to do this, I'm sorry, the second way to do this is we could have the superintendent decide, look at all the plans and make a decision on her own as far as what is the best plan, in my opinion, as an administrator. And I'm fine with that. That's a way to do it. It goes to the committee. The committee looks at the plan, they hold public hearings, we talk about the plan the superintendent proposed, and we figure out why she proposed it. What are the reasons that we didn't pick all those other plans? This process, and I'm not, portraying any ill will. I don't think that's what happened here. But what we did is we took those two different ways to do this, and we put them together, and we created this chaos. Because now we have a plan. We have a plan, the second way to do this, which is Plan A, and we have a redistricting committee. And everything got confused. Because now we're here and we're attacking the plans, but we never really thought about what are the pros and benefits to each plan. We have to do that first. And I agree with Mr. Gold that the problem is we set a budget and it encompasses Plan A. So there really can't be discussion at this point.
I
So
have
my
to ask
opinion
you
is
to conclude, please.
you just step back, pick one of the other ways to do this, do it open, we'll make sure everybody can see what we're doing, and then make a decision when we actually have real plans in front of us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes,
Good
sir.
evening. Alex Mitreski, 68 Ellington Street. I serve on the redistricting committee. So it's all about the children, isn't it? That's all there is about. And that's why we're here. That's why we're in Long Meadow. That's why we pay the highest property tax in the whole state of Massachusetts. It's all about the children. Many of you feel that you've been unjustly thrown in this mess. Believe me, I feel the same way. I woke up February 23rd, read the email from the superintendent, and if that included my house being redistricted, but not my children, I might have felt differently. But now I'm living this nightmare. I'm seeing my child crying, being upset, and wondering why she's no longer good enough to go to Blueberry Hill. And I don't care about Blueberry Hill. I don't think it's any better school than Center Wolfswamp. It's not. Look at the scores. They're all great schools. But that's my daughter's home school. That's where she's crying. That's where her friends are. And I can't come up with a better solution. And that's where the problem is. We start this process on February 25th. Public process starts March 17th. Public can't speak till tonight. We got a meeting tomorrow. It's 1 month. I looked at the data for 10 last redistricting processes that have happened in this whole state. They all start in the fall. People lay out plans, roll up their sleeves, come up with ideas, and come up with a solution. And most of them hire help, professional help, because I can't come up, and I'm going to tell you, A is a bad choice, C is a bad choice, E is probably a bad choice. They're all bad choices because they've come overnight. I had to come up with those plans in a week, selfishly, to save my daughter to stay in A, because that's all I care about. My kids, I'm a parent, that's what's priority to me, and I'm sorry if now you're all in this mess, but that's the problem. If we had hired a professional help, they came in and said, look, buddy, Ellington, Farmington, these are the streets. We've determined census data comes up, fancy charts, you are the solution to the problem. I don't have anybody in this room to argue and point fingers and say, you don't like me or you don't like me. That's what we need. That's what so many towns have done. It's a very simple process because, and I'll tell you why A and C don't work. 5 years ago, Center had 420 students, 5 years ago, and it went down to 350. So imagine, in 5 years, 70 children have gone. It declined. Imagine in 5 years that enrollment increases up and we're in 420 under the same footprint. And then when you add these 60 children, you have centered 500. Okay, so 500 students in 5 years and we're in this mess. And what's going to happen is we're going to prolong redistricting for another 5 years and we're going to be here in 10 years and we're going to hate each other, and we're going to look at each other, and don't look at each other in Big Y. That's the problem. It happens to me a lot lately. So my view is redistrict houses, but don't redistrict children. I mean, that's a very simple concept. My children are not furniture. You can't just transpose them from one place to another. They're resilient, I'm sure. They build defense mechanisms, but the emotional traumatic experience, it hurts. So my point is, if tonight we make it a night of unity instead of division, and if we say, let's do this, let's grandfather children, we can come up with a very good solution. You want E out of sight of the equation? I'll be the first one Thursday to come up with an amendment to say, let's eliminate E. If this town doesn't want to stomach E, that's fine. But it's hypocritical, because if you redistrict A, you're specifically making a de facto swing area, a small subset in this town that has been redistricted 10 years ago, and it's redistricted again. So think about that. So
Thank you.
I just want to finish up. We gathered 50 signatures, grandfathered children in a matter of in 1 hour. So people really feel about the
Your
most
time is
important
up.
thing is, sorry, so most important thing is that redistrict houses, not children. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir?
Hi, Matt Ranovics. I live on Highland Street, so I would be in Zone A or E. My main concern is that the process seems very rushed, as other people have mentioned today, and at least to me appears to have been arbitrary. For example, I don't understand the criteria by which certain streets were included in the different zones or not included in the different zones. What criteria were used to determine that? I've been told that, for example, Zone A is considered a neighborhood. That strikes me as an odd neighborhood that crosses Converse, which is the most, one of the busiest streets in town. And I understand all of the objections to E. It clearly is the most complicated plan. It would disrupt these neighborhoods. But given the arbitrariness of this process, I feel like whether we like it or not, most of us are living in a swing zone because these zones can be moved back and forth with very little public debate. So I'd ask the committee to do two things, if possible. A lot of people have expressed concern about the effect of Plan E on property values. But as previous speakers have noted, this is an increasingly popular way to do redistricting. There's got to be data out there on what the actual effect on property values is. I think that would be interesting to actually collect and see. And finally, given the flaws in the process, I would also support the idea of grandfathering current children. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Glenn Ringblom of 211 Hopkins Place. I fall within Plan E, and that's why I came here is to speak against Plan E, reiterate a lot of the things we already heard. One thing I wanted to touch on, I found it troubling that Plan E is being called a long-term solution. I think it's really trying to create some bit of certainty out of having constant uncertainty. And to call it a long-term solution, you could say that about any plan you put in place simply by not making it permanent. So I don't find it to be a long-term solution. I don't find that to be good logic to get to that point. On a last note, I would just want to touch on, when you're looking at some of the other plans, Plan A, one of the cons that you put up there for Plan A is that it was already redistricted in the past. But somehow that's a con because it already happened once in the past, but now constant redistricting for one section of town is a pro. I don't think that makes any sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yeah, hi, I'm Dan Lino. I live at 123 Hopkins Place. I'm the guy who liked the numbers.
I'm sorry.
I showed up here tonight with 75 petitions signed by our neighbors against Plan E. And I'm going to.
What is your name again, please?
Dan Lino, L-Y-N-A-U-G-H.
Thank you.
Okay. The meeting that was held on April 7th, where the plans we hear about today were voted upon, was patently unfair, as there were 2 Blueberry Hill parent representatives there on that panel, but no Center School parents representatives on the committee at that time when votes were taken. Plan E was crafted in private by persons with clear bias. It was only made public 7 days ago, and its map was redrawn as late as this past Friday. If a swing district is adopted, it will tear apart the neighborhood schools that have long been successful here and why most people move to this town. It will break down the current tight-knit communities built around our children, but only for the select few in the swing district. It is immoral, unethical, and just plain wrong. Plan E speaks about moving between 3 schools. That means you could swing from Center to Wolf Swamp. Additionally, this plan does not fix the problems at hand, overcrowding at Blueberry. We don't want to get sued by the U.S. government like they did in Ludlow and have to put up temporary permanent classrooms that cost $250,000 that are not in the budget. And you know what'll happen if the budget gets cut? The music program is gone, so I know people like that. The superintendent actually said tonight that grandfathering is only for current fourth graders, not all students. All this plan does is add complexity and uncertainty to our lives. It devalues our properties, which lowers the town tax base and impacts everyone. Plan E comparisons to a town like Newton are specious. Newton has 85,000 residents, 15 elementary schools with 15 swing districts. And those there, they use a swing district there to balance the schools racially and socioeconomically, not just for size. Plan E destroys our neighborhoods and lowers the value of our properties. It needs to go away. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi,
Yes,
Chrissy
ma'am.
Fazio from Greenacre Avenue. I have 65 signatures opposed to option E, from people that have kids that are in the school district right now, or kids that or folks that have kids that have already gone through the school, who love the town, and that's basically what we're trying to hold on to, is our sense of community. And I hate to belabor the same issue, but as a stay-at-home mom of 5, when I moved to Greenacre, I didn't know one person on the street. And I attribute the fact that I know every single face, not only on Greenacre, but on Winona and York and Longmeadow Street, to the fact that I walk to center school 4 times a day, back and forth, my little parade of 5, 6, 7, 10 kids. And, people ask me, number one question, mother of 5, how do you do it? How do you do it? Well, it takes a village. I use my village, I need my village, I rely on my village. If I have a doctor's appointment, if I can't get to preschool, one day chorus was canceled, my daughter was sitting outside in the freezing cold waiting for a ride, my neighbor 2 doors down brought her home. There's lots of moms that work. I take 2, 3, 4, 5 kids home every day. We walked home. I can't put 9 kids in my minivan. Well, I could, and I have, but, not supposed to, but, that's what this means to us. We moved here for this sense of community. I want my kids to know who their neighbors are. I want my neighbors to know who my kids are, because I tell them, if you get in trouble, they know who you are. They know who you belong to, so don't do anything wrong, because I'll find out about it. That's what Longmeadow means to us. That's the sense of community. If we have kids going to schools in all different directions, I understand the point about kids learn to play, with each other, but that happens in middle school. My kids, I still make their play dates. I still do the neighborhood, organized events, the egg hunt, the block party, because I want my kids to know the kids that live next door. And they may not be best friends, but they'll be lifelong friends as long as those families stay in that same neighborhood. So that's what we'd like to see happen and stay. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Maureen Ryan. I live on Roseland Terrace, and my message is for grandfathering. I have a 2nd grader who's hearing impaired, who rides her bike happily to school. She's the youngest of 3. She's meeting her grade level expectations. She's a well-adjusted part of our community. I think we all agree that the kids come first. I think we all agree our property value is important. I think we all agree the safety of our children is important and valued. I think it's important to hear that our kids are upset, understanding that they would be happy in any school in Longmeadow. They're all great. I think the choice should be given to families being asked to move. Would they like to stay or go? Some people I've spoken to in my neighborhood would prefer to change to another school. Go to Center. They're very happy with that suggestion. Others feel strongly against that. I don't know that the number of 66 to 70 students is going to have the huge impact outweighing the emotional tax on our families and children in this town. I absolutely support grandfathering. Thank you. I support grandfathering. I want our kids to be happy, successful learners. I would hate to see a change in a neighborhood boundary drawn to have a long-term effect on the educational process of our youngest learners. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name's Kristen Fitzpatrick. I'm a resident at 215 Ellington Road. I just want to say, as a native to Long Meadow, a parent of school-age children, I don't have any in elementary school right now, but I did have my daughter go to both Center and Blueberry Hill. And a taxpayer, I am a strong proponent of neighborhood schools. I don't care where my current neighborhood is going to be assigned. We are in part of that swing district of Plan E, but I want a definitive answer. So I do not support Plan E. As a realtor in town, where I do most of my business, I feel that new buyers with school-age children are going to gravitate to the clearly defined areas. That is going to impact negatively the home values in the swing areas. And conversely, in terms of thinking of this as a long-term solution, if you're going to have buyers demanding those areas where the schools are clearly defined, it is going to put demands on enrollment, because that's where they're going to gravitate to. And in the end, it's not a long-term solution, because we're going to be dealing with a redistricting issue in a few years, because those enrollments will be increased in those areas. So I do not support Plan E. I appreciate your efforts in trying to find a solution, but I would love a definitive answer.
Hi, I'm Jill Baker, and I live on Cedar Road. I am not personally affected by this, and I don't know if I will be. We're all the way in Will Swamp. But I do have 2 elementary school children, and I know how devastated and detrimental this would be to them if they had to up and move to a new school. So I support any plan that would grandfather their children that are in their current school and their families, because I think to uproot a child right now would be so detrimental and not worth any other, and it wouldn't be worth it to anyone, no matter the numbers or the school size, anything. I just think you really need to keep the kids and their families in their current schools.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Kip Ehrenberg, and I'm a graduating high school senior here at Long Meadow High School. Unlike most people who have spoken so far, I've actually been redistricted before. When I was in elementary school, I was redistricted from Center School to Blueberry Hill School. I rode my bike to school every day, and once redistricted, I rode my bike even farther to get to school. I had to cross major roads regardless of which school I attended, and I was able to get to each school safely both ways. I was not negatively affected by this. I was not bullied, nor was my education affected. We are fortunate to live in a town with an incredible education system regardless of what school we attend. Second, nor third, nor fourth grade is any different in any of the schools. In fact, by redistricting using Plan A, we can relieve a large classroom size at Blueberry and provide a more balanced education for all of Long Meadow. Plan A provides a swift fix to the current problem with the least ramifications of any of the plans. I ask you to support Plan A so that we can focus on education, which is the most important factor of this decision.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hi. Good evening. My name is Christopher Trotta. I'm from 37 Homecrest Street. And moving to this community from Springfield, I went through a redistricting process there. My children weren't old enough to be in school, but they created neighborhood schools 2.5 miles from my home, where literally 2 streets over was a neighborhood school that my child could not attend. Yet I could hear the children playing from my backyard in that school. And I'm in an even more unique situation now, where I have one child, a preschooler at Center receiving special services, and a second grader in a private school who will be moving to, we don't know what school, because we don't know what these plans really are about. We moved for a neighborhood school in the community itself. She's traumatized enough knowing that she's leaving her private school next year to possibly attend Blueberry, or maybe Wolf Swamp, or maybe is it Center, or no, what about St. Mary's? Well, we don't really know, because all of a sudden you guys decided to redistrict because of some overcrowding. What really needs to be focused on in this community and throughout the Commonwealth is we need to abolish these biased tests that all they're doing is testing our children between Park and MCAS and everything else. We need to worry about the bullying. We need to worry about the potential vices that are coming into our community from this casino that, yes, will infiltrate this community and our school systems right through the K through 12 through any other student. We don't need to focus on redistricting. The overcrowding balances itself as children age out and as families move in and out of the community. We need to focus on the education that they're receiving in the community, from our schools, from our teachers who do a hell of a job and who, frankly, are underpaid. So I'm for keeping the schools the way they are. Think about your plans. Think about spending your money elsewhere. I don't see any workable solution for Plan A, B, C, or Q, or whichever. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Laura Rovelli-Keene, 320 Hopkins Place. So I went to Blueberry Hill, and we were redistricted when I was in 4th grade, and we went to the middle school, missed 5th grade at the elementary school because of overcrowding. So I do think there's other options that we can look at. The reason I'm talking tonight is more for my son who's special needs, and I don't think that those people in the special needs, at least what I've seen and I've read, have been thought about. And I know that the committee has been doing everything that they've, can do, and they've thought about everything. But I think that there's other things to consider. And I agree, and I think everyone in this room agrees, and we've heard it from many people that it's been rushed. And I just think we need to think about the other kids and how this is affecting our town, our friendships, our communities. My son will be going into 4th grade. He's special needs. He's has adapted phys ed. He's got his OT speech. His whole community of teachers that know his special needs. If he's thrown into another school, how are those teachers going to know to look in his eyes and what's going to trigger him? So I think that there's other things to think about, and I think everyone in this room agrees that it's been too fast to really consider all of those nuances with all the kids that we have in the schools.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Rob D'Attusa, and I'm at 183 Hopkins Place, so we would be affected by Plan E. And I feel compelled to step forward and speak against Plan E. One of the things that I heard the high school students say that interested me is the fact that he had been redistricted, and he felt as though he had absolutely no detrimental effect from having been redistricted in the middle of elementary school. And I hear a lot of people coming today saying, well, my kid is crying, or my kid is something's bad is gonna happen to my kid. And I think people are putting a little too much drama into what is gonna happen to their child if they're moved one time during elementary school. I think we're not giving our kids nearly enough credit to adapt to the situation, and the parents are overreacting. I haven't seen one study come forward that says kids who move schools in 3rd grade become depressed, unhappy, bad students, none of that. What I see are parents who are afraid of going from one school to another. All the schools in this district are the same. Center School is a good school. My kids went there. My kids are not going to be redistricted. They're in middle school and going to be 5th grade, so it's not going to matter to me. I just can't see how Plan E, which puts the entire burden on a quarter of this community for their home prices to fall in value and for the community school to be torn apart, I don't see how that could be a good plan. It's a horrible plan, and it should not be considered by this committee. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Rose Morace, a lifelong resident of Long Meadow, a member of the Board of Directors, Council on Aging, although I'm not representing them, and retired Long Meadow teacher. I taught for 40 years, and I love this community, and I love the sense of our strong neighborhood school systems and the wonderful job the educational staff does with our kids. I'm not concerned as much with real estate values or depreciation of my property as I am for your children. I think we need to offer them a strong community sense, good neighborhoods, and everything else that all these parents are really concerned about tonight. I think the whole thing should be scrapped, and it shouldn't even be brought to fore as it has tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Noella Sullivan. I live at 104 Birchwood Avenue. Someone previously stated that they felt like a handful of parents from Plan A didn't mean or amount to anything. It's 70 families from Plan A that will be affected. And if your child was impacted by any plan, you'd be thinking very differently. Actually, my children are easygoing kids. We talked about this in a really positive way about moving to center school, and they're okay with it. My son's going to be in 5th grade. My daughter will be in 2nd grade. So I might have 2 kids at 2 different schools if the 5th graders are grandfathered in. I think that's going to be difficult on top of having a high schooler I have to get to school. But either way, even though I'm standing up here not fighting for my kids, because I feel like my kids will be okay, and all 3 schools at Long Meadow are amazing, and we're so lucky to live here and have this great education for our kids, and we're not sending them to any school that's less than the school they're presently at. But their kids, as a therapist, a social worker, a mom, someone I babysit after school, there are kids that are really, really upset and are having a real hard time leaving the strong friendships they have, the teachers they have, everything they've known and loved for 4 or 5 possible years, and to say, okay, you're moving to another school. Yeah, it's not the end of the world. Some of the kids will adjust just great, and they actually might have a better experience at center. Some of the kids are going to have a hard time. And, you know, it's hard for kids to stand up here and talk, and I give Shay Clean so much credit for standing up here as a 3rd grader and sharing her concerns, but she just made a lot of good friends this year, and she had a hard time making friends, and now has this great group of friends, and to leave for 2 years to another school, leave her friends, and it's hard making new friends when you're in other older grades, like 3rd and 4th, and, you know, the kindergartners I think will be fine, maybe 1st and 2nd graders will be fine as well, but if you have a strong group of friends, and I've had the same friends I've had since kindergarten, and those are my closest friends, and yeah, there's worse that could happen to these kids, absolutely. But I'm standing here fighting for the kids in my neighborhood that are going to have a hard time. And some of my friends are therapists and psychologists and do a great job, and everyone else is saying, oh, it's the parents that are having the problems and not presenting this in a positive light. That's absolutely not true. We've all presented it in a positive light. But there's some kids that are going to go with the flow, and there's some kids that just can't. And to take 70 kids and move them, is it really going to make that big of a difference for next year? No. You might have 1 less kid in your class. So the parents that want to decrease their child's class size and have a smaller class for their child, maybe they should start thinking about if this was happening to them, how would they really feel? Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
Mary Beth Rycheski. I live at 42 Blockland Drive. I was hoping to not have to speak tonight. I agree with the idea of grandfathering, but my main purpose of speaking is because I don't feel that really anybody has represented Plan C, so I feel as though I must, as a parent who lives in Plan C. I live at 42 Blockland Drive, like I said. I'm less than a half a mile from Blueberry. My kids walk or bike every day. Oftentimes I can be seen with my kids pushing my twin 2-year-olds in the stroller. It's something, we purchased our house specifically so we would be so close to a school. If we're redistricted to center, we'll be over a mile and a half. It's not, we could still walk, but it's not going to be as easy. I'm not going to be able to send my 2nd grader by himself like he does now. And so I just, want to make sure people understand that Plan C is out there, and I think there's a lot of talk about Plan A and a lot of talk about Plan E, and I just wanted to make sure that someone gave a voice to the fact that Plan C, the distance would be a major change for our neighborhood. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Meg Din from 41 Duxbury Lane. I was not prepared to speak tonight, and this is probably going to be the least emotional thing anyone hears tonight, but just in your pros and cons, a pro of Plan C was that we have not been redistricted, and we have. Duxbury Lane used to go to center, and now they go to Blueberry. So if anyone is going to use that in their decision-making process, I'd like for that pro to be removed. And I can't think of any off the top of my head. We're pretty much all anti-E here tonight, but it makes me wonder what all those other pros from Plan E, if they're even true. Because I didn't think it would be that hard to research that Plan C Duxbury Lane has been redistricted before. So, just makes me wonder.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, my name is David Carrington. I'm not going to argue in favor or against any of the specific plans. Like others have implied, they all seem kind of rushed to me and half-baked. And like others have implied, I think this actually seems like a big divisive solution in search of a problem. But whatever plan we do adopt, I just want to argue in favor of grandfathering in the children that go to Blueberry. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Jenna Papadopoulos. I sit on the redistricting committee. I am part of Neighborhood A, and I wasn't going to speak tonight. Took enough guts just to sit up in the front row there. But I do really want to say two quick things. Number one, I think the process has been rushed. Finding out, on February 25th, that this was kind of in play. And here we are, the middle of April, and we want a decision the beginning of May. That just doesn't add up, for me, and I think for a lot of people in the room, it's really kind of a rush process. And the second thing I wanted to say was that no matter what plan, gets adopted, I am fully in favor of grandfathering all children and their families so they can stay in their neighborhood schools that they started in. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Fran Kress. I'm from 273 Converse Street, and my children are no longer in the school system, but I speak from some experience because I sat on the redistricting committee 12 years ago. And I want to say to the redistricting committee, I feel your pain. It is a remarkably difficult process to go through, and it is very difficult to do oftentimes with the information you are given. I'd like to think out of the box a little bit. I'm not going to speak about, I'm in Plan E, and I disagree with it for all the reasons given. But I think we need to think out of the box a little bit about what we're doing. One of the things that I know, and we all should know, is that characteristically, neighborhoods have a life cycle, just as our children have a life cycle and humans have a life cycle. I think we need to look at our neighborhoods and see where they are in the course of their life cycle. This is a statistical analysis, and it would be very, very useful. So take that and then consider declining demographics, which we saw earlier. Over what period of time is it likely that there may begin to be some balancing among the schools so that there might actually be extra classrooms in certain schools where perhaps teachers could move to a new classroom in a new school rather than moving students? Easier for teachers to move to a different classroom than it is to pick up 70 kids and move them to a new school. Perhaps that's the way we ought to be thinking about it, and I'd like to ask you to, think out of the box and think creatively here. There are other ways to do this. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we've used up most of the speakers who haven't who have spoken once. Have you spoken before?
No.
Go ahead.
Stephanie Jasmine, 123 Englewood Road. I'm not in the redistricting area, and I'm going to bring something else to the attention. And that is, what is the educational impact of bringing 70-plus kids to center school? Are we equipped to handle that? Physically, maybe. Infrastructurally, teachers, staff, what's been looked at? If there's a committee that's meeting, I'm not aware of it and what's been discussed. Like MCAS or not, it guides the curriculum, guides what textbooks are chosen and what the teachers teach. So when we look at when Longmeadow was last redistricted back in 2003, and students from center school went over to Blueberry Hill, when you look at the MCAS scores following that redistricting, so you have the MCAS scores for 2002,
and you look at them for 2003, they took a huge nosedive. And why is that? I don't know, but I can say that Center School did not. Center School's MCAS remained the same. So when you take a group of kids and put them in another school without thinking about it, without a long process of looking at how you are going to address the needs of those kids, you're not just taking one kid for first grade, one kid for second grade. You don't know how those kids are going to be spread across. I don't know how much you've looked into it. It's a long process that can't be done in 2 months. You just can't take 70 kids and put them in Center School and think that you're going to appropriately be able to educate them. And my guess is that's why Blueberry Hill's MCAS scores took a nosedive in 2003, and then they took another nosedive. So the MCAS were 2004, if you're going to look up the data, and then 2005. And they took a nosedive to the extent of the literacy scores going from 84% proficient down to 54. So it's something that needs to be looked at. We don't want that repeated if in fact it was because a large group of children were brought into Blueberry Hill without the appropriate supports. We're not in a position right now, and the elementary schools, to be doing so much at once. Our MCAS scores are hurting. No one wants to hear that their school is not doing well, but our MCAS scores at the elementary level are hurting. When they're reported with the high school that bring them up, you may not notice it. But if you look at the elementary grades, you'll see it.
Thank you. You've already spoken once, correct? Okay. Yes, sir.
I'm Dan Kennedy. I'm not, well, I shouldn't say I'm not affected.
Your name, please?
Daniel Kennedy.
Thank you.
My daughter is not affected per se by being redistricted, but she has friends that are in Blueberry Hill that will be. And I'm just curious from the committee and how it's looked, if they're moving 70 children, that would average about 10 per grade, I would imagine. And looking at gaining classrooms, there's 5 classrooms in first grade and 5 in third currently. So I'm assuming that the idea is that there would actually be larger class sizes for the current first grade and third grade, second grade and fourth grade next year in order to gain those classrooms. So I'm just not positive that there's going to be an overall benefit with having all the children leave. They're going to be affected, and then the first and third graders are actually going to have larger class sizes. So that's not actually going to help them. So I would really strongly encourage the idea of grandfathering in both the current children as well as their families, because I think the problem can be addressed over time, but it doesn't seem like you're going to, it seems like you're going to create a lot of problems and maybe not necessarily help as many kids at Blueberry as you think by moving those kids out of there. There's going to be residual effects at Blueberry as well, where first and third grade are actually going to be worse off. They're going to have higher class sizes. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Janet Quayne Nowak. I live on 104 South Park Ave, Zone A. I just want to make it clear that I support any plan that involves grandfathering. And I'm not a very good public speaker, so I'm just going to read from what I wrote. The majority of the parents in this community have made a conscious decision to stay in their homes while their children attend school so that their school experience will not be disrupted. This decision needs to be honored by the school committee and the school administration, and grandfathering needs to happen. During the last redistricting meeting on April 7th, the words pain and children were being exchanged within the same breath, which was quite disturbing. The committee members questioned how they could proceed with redistricting, which would involve the least amount of pain inflicted upon the child. So are we taking a harm reduction approach when reviewing plans A and C and E? Is there more harm with moving 60 children, or is there more harm with keeping Blueberry Hill as it is over time addressing the numbers issues? My understanding is that Blueberry is at full capacity. It is not in crisis. We are not seeing high teacher turnover or student dissatisfaction. The test scores are high and the children are, most of them are happy. My understanding is that the special education department, which my son is a part of, is experiencing problems with lack of space. Portable and relocatable classrooms can be used in the interim. This involves money, but it has potential to be priceless if you were to look at the faces of the 60 Blueberry Hill School children who are potentially slated for redistricting when they are told that they can return to their school this fall. Not any neighborhood should be the sacrificial neighborhood. The loss of a school is a profound loss, even when experienced with other children in the same neighborhood, even for the most resilient child. We can no longer use this blanket term, children are resilient, to pacify our guilt in this process. Each child is different, and each family situation is different. While it is important for children to develop resiliency and for the parents to cultivate this skill, it is not the school administration's job to force change upon a child and to assume that resiliency is in place. Grandfathering and a very close look at any of the plans, Plan E at the time seemed like maybe that was something that was reasonable, but actually I question that as well after tonight. But, you know, this is the way to proceed, to take time, and we have not been given enough time as a community.
Thank you. Yes, sir?
My name is Tom Manella. I live at 35 Blockland Drive. I'm a member of the Redistricting Committee, and I am impacted by both Plan C and E. On the Redistricting Committee, I am the representative of the Blueberry Hill School Council, and I take that role seriously. I see my job on the committee to represent the best interests of Blueberry Hill. I came here tonight thinking that we had 3 bad plans to offer you, and I'll leave tonight knowing that that's a fact. I'm impressed by what this town is capable of when it's motivated. Petitions, signatures, data, ideas, presentations, well-formulated opinions. Blueberry needs relief. It is bursting at the seams. So I'm here only to ask you to please continue to be motivated and send the Redistricting Committee your ideas for what you think is an acceptable solution for where we find ourselves. We're doing the best we can, but we are amateurs, and I would appreciate your brain trust to help us through this process with your ideas that we might be able to effectively implement. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I already asked I have a question actually for the committee. After listening to everybody speak, including...
Have you spoken before?
Yes.
Oh, you have?
Yes.
Is there anybody that has not spoken?
Go ahead.
You're up.
Can I just scoot this over? Hi, my name is Jess Hutchins. Okay, so I'm a townie. I grew up in Long Meadow. I'm still here. I'm a former school committee member. I have children at Blueberry Hill, and where I live is not impacted. But I just want to share a couple of thoughts. And my first thought is, when I was growing up in Long Meadow, there's a big, big controversy over Converse Street School, and it was really, really, really emotionally charged. And I switched in 3rd grade and then went to 4th grade at Blueberry Hill School. And it was stressful and it was hard, but it was actually fine in the end. And I survived and we thrived, and I lived on Colony Road and I rode my bike. It was like almost 2 miles to Blueberry Hill School. It really did work out fine in the end. And really the important thing that I want to say tonight is redistricting is necessary. My biggest concern sitting here tonight is process. Process, 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 process. And all the trauma and all of the emotion and all of the stress we're feeling is because of the process. We have a job that needs to be done, but the way in which it's been approached by the school district is just not the right way to go about it, which has been commented on, I think, by several people. The big thing and the big factor is time. There just hasn't been enough time. This process should have started at least in September. People should have begun talking about this then. We should have been looking at plans. One of the questions I have here tonight is, who are we talking to? Are we talking to Mike? Where's the committee? Where's the school committee? When I was on the school committee and we held public forums, people sat in front of the speakers and they answered questions. It was a dialogue, and that was really helpful. And that helped to keep the process going, and helped people to feel like we could ask questions and they would be answered, not that we were just talking to a stage, an empty stage. So I think that the way that this whole forum has been set up has not been, it doesn't feel, from my standpoint, and I wonder how other people feel about it, that anybody's listening. Who's out there? Anyone? So I'm going to end by saying that, yes, I think all of the plans are not ripe. I think the timing is wrong. I think we need to step back, start over, do this professionally, do this properly. This was not initiated well. This was not planned well. This was shoot from the hip, and that's not how we do things in Long Meadow.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, I just had a question for the committee members. If somebody could maybe speak on this. It might sound a little sassy when I say this, but I'm curious where all these numbers suddenly surprised us and jumped onto your desk, and there was this panic to have this done in 2 months. So if somebody maybe wanted to, if there was a reason maybe that nobody is speaking about, or suddenly there's a lot of 5-year-olds that are coming up.
Mrs. Doyle.
I would like to recognize that the committee is sitting in front. We did ask the custodians to set the chairs up. They didn't do it, so the committee is all here, and I thank them for being present. The process did start in September. I think my mistake was having an enrollment committee that tried to do this quietly. I think my concern was pain for the community. I did live through this in Newton and was hoping that I could reduce the pain for the community. I apologize if people feel that there wasn't enough time for you to be involved in the process. I was hoping that we could do the studies, look at all the data, look at neighborhoods and bring forward a plan and make this a simple solution, and I was wrong, and I apologize for that. But we did start in September. We had an enrollment group that looked at data. We looked at neighborhoods. We looked at the impact of moving neighborhood A. It would balance class size equally at Blueberry and Center School. We looked at possibly grandfathering the 5th grade, realizing that was a traumatic time for a 5th grader to leave. So we did all those steps. We did bring it forward in February. I do hear loudly and clearly people thought that wasn't enough time. So that is how it played out.
Thank you, Mrs. Doyle. Further discussion on the issue? Yes, ma'am.
Jennifer Hallahan, 1241 William Street, and I would like to piggyback what Jessica just said. I also am a product of the Long Meadow School System, for better or for worse, and I went through that transition when I was in 2nd grade when Converse Street School and Greenwood were closed. And I think the biggest difference at 33, 34 years ago, 12 years ago, is planning and the process, because we as 2nd, 3rd, 4th graders that were moved from Converse Street School, and I assume the same thing happened at Greenwood, we had a year. When I say everything was covered, my mother says it was the biggest transition of my life. She always jokes about it. We knew everything from that first day of school. We had a year of planning as children, and we're told, I mean, I can look around this room and see 8 other people who went through this. Laura, we were told. I went to school with Laura until 2nd grade. We were separated until middle school again. We knew. You went on tours of the school. You were told. You were there with your parents. It was, everything was covered. That seems to be what's missing in this process. These are our children. There was control. You knew the plan, you were walking to school. It's too short a time frame at the moment for these children. There needs to be a process and planning and a law. It can't just happen overnight. There has to be some solution. And I know thought is being put in, but the detail that are these little people that are going to be moved. Thank you.
Mrs. Doyle.
There is a transition subcommittee that has been looking at this and working on a transition plan.
Well, wait. Just the microphone, thank you. Yes, sir. You've spoken already?
Yes, I have, and as a member from the Redistricting Committee, I just wanted to shine some light to some of the questions that have been raised. Since day one, I've thought this is a very amateurish process. For those who don't know, March 17 is when this started. It was 3 of us in the crowd We have 100, 150 tonight, so we know what people what are interested in a topic means. Superintendent Doyle walked to me and said, hey, you expressed some interest, why don't you join us to the committee? 5 minutes before the committee started. That's how I got involved. That's how mature this is. And that meeting, Superintendent Doyle put a straw vote, and then once the vote happened, which was full of teachers that I had to argue and say, why are you putting people that are directly reporting to you, 9 of them, came up to 43% of the committee composition was people that work for the school, directly reporting to her. 43%, compared to 2002 when there was 1 school employee, 7%. That's not a democratic process. So I had to fight to change that. Then constantly digging for data, because we put a straw vote. Obviously, me and Jenna, it was who's in favor of proposal A? Everybody raises his hand, and me and Jenna are like, what just happened? Vote happened. Oh, now that we have a preferred proposal, let's work about transition. And you know what was the transition? We'll have 3 school dances. That's how we're going to make children happy. That's what Superintendent Doyle came up with, an idea how to keep children happy. That's what happened on March 17. The notes are there, people can read. So anyway, so that was when I started and said, what is the urgency? What are we doing? Is there really next morning, I woke up and went to Miss Marie Pratt and said, I know you have a morning routine. Let me know when you're available. I want to walk the school. I want to see what is the rooms. I don't want to, if really there is an urgency, I don't want to be the one who stops that. I saw Blueberry, I think it's at capacity. It probably needs to start decreasing the enrollment there. But you saw that chart. Enrollment in Blueberry is built flat. In fact, it's 110 students have been more in Blueberry than Center over the last 10 years. 10 years, we've had 110 children more in Blueberry than Hill. So this is not new. And I keep asking, why did we not start this 3 years ago? Have a transitional process and we'll be where we want it to be today. Well, Superintendent Doyle last night at the school committee said, well, we've made a conscious decision to bring special services children into our town for the last 3 years. Exactly my point. If you started that to bring students into our town, why didn't you start redistricting then as well? So we would be where we want to be this year. That's where this process is so rushed. So now we had 1 month. A lot of parents have been digging data, trying to figure out what's happening, what are the enrollment data, and that's, for me,
Time's up.
actually, so just was going to finish. My professional career has stopped for the last month, just diving into the issue and trying to find the facts. And I have plenty more to share with you. Thank you.
Mr. Ray, having not previously spoken?
Not previously spoken. I wasn't planning on as a member of the redistricting committee. I heard the concerns of the crowd tonight. So to the person who was addressing it, that maybe you're speaking to a bunch of the back of heads, we're listening to every single word. I think we're hearing loud and clear. There's certain themes that keep recurring. The, grandfathering as an option, it definitely, at least for debate. The Plan E seems to be, nonsensical at best. Sorry, I'm taking a little bit of liberty there. But the bottom line, and what I just heard and what I heard before that, is bringing civility to this whole process. So I'm a process person by nature. I'm a Six Sigma black belt, GE trained. So process is very important to me. And I know that maybe it wasn't the optimal, but we are paying people to lead the district, to give us the best recommendations they have. This is why elections matter. This is why we elect our school committee, and that we all need to be aware of who we're electing, why we're electing them, and how we're supporting them. I spent 4 years on that school committee up there, and I tried to be as civil as possible throughout the process, and believe me, we tried to raise taxes, we tried to build a school, we brought back the music program, we brought back health in the schools. None of those were easy. Some of them were popular, some of them weren't. But you had to make the tough decisions, and at some point, that's what's going to have to happen here. But through it all, we have to remain civil, everybody, including the members of the committee. I pledge that. Contact me if you need more information, but bringing the heightened emotion to the committee is not going to solve any of our problems, and we just need to work together to get this done. So that's all I want to say.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Having previously spoken.
Second time, Sean Anderson. So first off, I want to thank everybody. This has been terrific to hear all the different viewpoints. and I really hope it informs the redistricting committee to really make decisions that impact our kids in a thoughtful, methodical manner. I love sort of mysteries, and this to me really feels like a mystery. To the comment of the data that's thrown up, a lot of this data, I've been to every single meeting. I was one of the people in the audience that didn't get voted onto the raft or onto the big table, and I've been watching very closely. I've done everything I can to, excuse me, to dig out the data. I've looked at the 94-page budget that is wrought with error. It shows how many FTEs are moving from, how many employees, FTEs, full-time equivalents, are moving from one school to another, but yet salary moves of $100,000 between one school and another, but doesn't show, it doesn't turn up in the other school. There's some fundamental flaws with this process. I think it was rushed. I think they're trying to drive this in to meet a budget demand. I echo Mr. Grant's opening statement. I thought he's onto something, looking at where the budget process is. We've heard from the school committee, from actually Ms. Doyle tonight, saying that this process started pick a date. I've heard it started in October, and I've heard it started in September, and I've heard it started in 2 months ago. It hasn't. It starts tonight with your voice, your opinion, because it's our kids. And so I hope that everybody here tonight really continues to inform the redistricting committee, and I really appreciate the redistricting committee and the school committee take a step back and really evaluate what you're trying to do for the long term. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? Yes, ma'am. Excuse me.
Susan Cash, 140 Ellington Street, so I am impacted by Plan A. I just wanted to voice my disappointment at this fairly rapid process that we've all been subjected to. I do think that this needed a lot more planning, and while you may have been involved early, we were not, and that's kind of a detriment to us. In addition, I would like to speak to the budget, which for the school, as I understand, has already been passed. And I don't understand how a budget can be passed if we're still debating plans and redistricting. I know that in that budget, if I'm correct, at least 4 faculty positions at Blueberry will be eliminated. I'd like to know if those are going to be moved to center, if Plan A gets into effect, or how they're going to accommodate for those extra 70 students. Thank you.
Mrs. Doyle, please.
We have a $33 million budget. We have flexibility every year, particularly in the summertime. We make movements of staff. That is not atypical. We built a budget based on what we thought at the time, and there is plenty of flexibility within the budget to accommodate whatever decision is made.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Alex Grant, I'm speaking for the second time. And
Having spoken
here,
previously.
yes, and I'm actually speaking just to ask the questions. I raised in my statement earlier, last night, there were people who went to the school committee and asked the question. And I guess the question I have is when we're going to get the information about where those 4.7 slots are at least planned to be cut from. Every other school presentation in years past identified them. And if those cuts depend on the different options, could you tell us? And could you tell us how much each option would have in terms of an impact on the budget? If we don't know that, if we're locked into one option, this is all a farce. And so could you just tell us that information, or at least tell us when we're going to get that information?
Mrs. Doyle, please.
We are not locked into an option. The budget is still flexible. Again, we make changes every single summer in the staffing. We are not locked into any option.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Stephanie Jasmine, again, 123 Englewood Road. I would just like to follow up on what Alex Grant was saying about each option and knowing how much each one costs. To that same extent, I'd like to know what the impact on center school, the staff, the teachers, each option presents for the school when you're looking at each option is very different with the enrollment that would be coming in each year, the students that would be coming in, what grades, et cetera.
Is that a question, ma'am?
Actually, I will form it as a question, because I'd like to know, as part of this process,
Yeah.
where that falls. Has it been looked at? Is it going to be looked at? And can we get that information as to what each plan, how it impacts the school that the children will be going to, in terms of teachers, staff, classes, et cetera?
Okay. I'm told that they'll get that information for you. Yes, sir.
Hello,
Is this
Russell
the third
DePere.
time you've spoken?
Twice.
Oh.
Second time. I think I want to ask more directly, did the budget include redistricting? Because my understanding is we had an October meeting, and then we talk about a lot of meetings after that point. And I think a lot of questions have been asked about that, but I still haven't heard the answer. Does the budget include redistricting? And second, who is we? After October, who is we we're meeting on this? Because there's no public meetings posted about this issue since October until February.
Okay.
So if I get an answer to that, I'd appreciate it.
I believe the question is, does the budget consider redistricting?
I believe when I brought forward a budget and recommended it, I looked at 2.7 positions that could be reduced if we went with Plan A. Again, every summer we shift staff, every summer we make adjustments based on class size, so that's not atypical to do. What was the second part of the question?
Earlier you indicated that we were meeting since October, and I'm asking who is we? Because as a member of the public, I'm confused about who was making these decisions up until February. And who helped you make the plan?
Janet Robinson, Katie Gerard, Michelle Grodsky came to one meeting, and myself were working on it behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes. Now, I guess earlier my comment was, this is something that really affects us, and we really need to know. And I'm not, I really think we need to step back and look at how do we make this more transparent so we all know what's going on. I was at a meeting where I've been going to the meetings, and Plan D came up, which is where I'm from, and I was shocked to see it, and I've been paying attention. And so I know lately we've been trying to be more transparent. I just think the beginning of the year could have been laid out better so that we weren't so confused at this point.
Again, my intent was to save pain for the community, and I understand that people would have liked to be involved in the beginning, and I apologize for that.
Yeah, and I'm not saying there's not any ill intent, it's just a process.
I lived through this in Newton where it was very destructive to the community. I've replayed this a million times in my head, what I would have done differently. I would have brought in a consultant, I would have started right away in September. But when I was thinking this through originally, it was to save pain for the community, to try and come forward with a plan and a recommendation to reduce what I had lived through in Newton. I don't think there's an easy answer. This is a very painful process, and I clearly made a bad decision.
I appreciate that.
Hindsight is 2020. I'm sorry, Jeff Klotz, parent, guitar player, skier.
May I have your name, please?
Jeff Klotz.
Thank you.
I'm also on the town's audit committee. I'm also a candidate in full disclosure for select board. As a member of the town's audit committee, I read all that esoteric, geeky accounting stuff, and we're very clear to note what's called a problem in layman's term. And every year there's a problem with the accounting in the school system. Every year. It's right out there in black and white. It's not hidden. One of the things that Massachusetts law enables our school system to do is reclassify budget transfers with impunity. Once the budget's improved, there's room in the budget to do whatever they want. We're lucky in this town that our school committee has passed ordinance, law, whatever, internal controls in the accounting world, where they say if it's in between $5,000 and $10,000, they'll document it. And if it's over $10,000, they'll document it by other people. I've requested that information, and it was like pulling teeth. What I'm hearing is we all want transparency. We want to know what the school committee is doing, be it financially, where they've demonstrated continually, year after year, to not abide by the recommendations of auditors. We found $30,000 in cash that wasn't deposited for months. There should have been guns and drugs with it. Or a process like this. So yes, votes matter. You need to pick and choose who you elect and vet them carefully. And people in this town who step up and do the under-rewarded work need to be recognized. That's all.
Thank you. Well, are there any more speakers? Questions? No, I guess not. Yes, sir.
Hi, Matt Landon, 64 Ardsley Road. There was a mention that we don't have a consultant and we wish we had, but there was also a mention that we got professional help. I'd just like more clarity on, is there someone trained and skilled in this type of project beyond this group helping us? And if not, it seems pretty clear that we need that person.
Yes, ma'am.
Kim King, I'm on Pinewood Drive. I'm a member of the school committee, and I just want to let everyone know here that the entire school committee, besides the redistricting committee, is here. We are hearing your concerns. We are taking every bit of information into consideration when the vote comes before us. So I know there was some mention of where the school committee is. I can tell you there's 2 here, there's 3 up there, and there's 2 back here. So we are here, we are listening. So I just want to let you know. 1 over there.
Thank you. Well, I see no more speakers, ladies and gentlemen, and I won't call for a motion to adjourn, but... Hold on. Yes, sir.
I asked a question, and I was hoping that someone could address it. Thank you.
I believe the question had to do with whether there's any trained and skilled individuals helping the school committee?
Or a professional consultant, yes.
Professional consultants?
We did look into that, and there are districts such as Newton that have consultants, but they also have 16 elementary schools. We certainly have talked to people to see what they would offer. I spoke to someone as recently today who said his advice would be he would never suggest that a community turn over their redistricting decisions to a consultant. He talked about a committee process. He talked about having public forums where people could give feedback such as this.
Yes, sir.
I would agree with not turning it over to a consultant, but collaboration and input and experience and data, all of that I think would be very important.
That will conclude our meeting tonight, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure the school committee and Mrs. Doyle, thank you for being here. And at this point, we'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you.